There, welcome into the show on a Thursday. It is a Thursday. It means we have an esoteric Europa League crew.
Excuse me?
I had to get that word in for you.
That means it's Thursday.
Yes, it does. So you wait till the Intertoto Cup comes up later in the summer.
Taka was great in that.
It was indeed. Here's Alejandro Moreno. I'm Adrian Healy. Paul Mariner and Shaka Hislop of the Intertoto Cup fame is with us. And we have some powerful split screen for you here. I think a split screen we've never seen before. Bradley Wright-Phillips of the New York Red Bulls joining us, and Raphael Honigstein of Munich, of Bavaria, and of London is also on board.
What a man.
We will start in the Europa League. Both English teams, both London teams in action. Paul, got to start with your boys, Arsenal, who came in rip-roaring form, didn't they, after those 3 successive defeats. But this time they were on the right end of the result. They got the 3 goals after a bit of a dodgy start.
Yes. Look, when we're talking about levels, this was not a great football match, but the result for Arsenal was a good result. The unfortunate thing was that Valencia got that 1 goal, which may cost them eventually. The one thing that I was watching this afternoon is if you've got a somewhat of a patched up back 3, to me you were protected with the best possible players that you've got to protect, and he chose to play Guendouzi and Granit Xhaka. And to me that's not going to get it done. You've got a guy on the bench, a fan favourite. He puts the shift in Torreira. He's a fantastic player. He should be in that side. The one thing that was pleasing for me was that he actually played Ozil, Aubameyang and Lacazette in that forward attacking area. And that basically was the difference, because both defences, Valencia and Arsenal, were very, very poor. Unfortunately, Arsenal could have had more goals, yes. Lacazette could have scored more goals, Aubameyang could have scored more goals. But at least they were effective in the box. And I must admit, it didn't fill me with joy that Arsenal actually won 3-1, because I didn't think they played particularly well. I thought the level of the game was poor.
Brad, for obvious reasons, you have some Arsenal leanings. Were you filled with joy by the Gunners' display today?
Yeah, I can understand what Paul's saying, but you know how things have been going of late. I was really happy. Obviously, after that first start, I think it was. I mean, the start of the game, it was a bit worrying, but after that, to get 3 goals, you know, and give yourself a good chance at the Mestalla, I couldn't be more happier.
Yeah, I mean. Got to be happy with the result.
Look, let's not beat around the bush. When we were eulogising yesterday about the level of that performance with Barcelona and Liverpool, we get this today. All right, it's the Europa League and all this sort of stuff, and Arsenal at home and take it to Valencia. So it was such a mediocre level of performance by both sides. I looked at Ali, I said, Ali, is this going to be difficult going back to Mestalla?
Yeah.
He said, well, yeah, it probably is. So 3-1 might be okay. But I'm not coming over. I'm happy with the result, don't get me wrong, yes. But the manner of the performance, I still don't get the way that Unai Emery puts this side out, the way that he protects that very weak defensive line.
Your assessment, Ali, on both sides of the ball, perhaps?
Well, I can tell you that the contrast that Paul is talking about between what we saw yesterday and what we saw tonight, it's clear and it's obvious. And a lot of it starts with the fact that neither one of these teams, Valencia or Arsenal, can really defend. In 1v1 situations, over distance, in space, in the midfield, there's just so much space, and it becomes a back and forth that perhaps the quality of the game is not that great, but it becomes entertaining because, look, there's mistakes everywhere, and there's people open in areas in which they shouldn't be open, and then the chances come from both Arsenal and Valencia. From Arsenal's perspective, you take the 3-1, but you must be very, very careful that you think it's all said and done, because it is not. Simply because you yourself, Arsenal, have not been very good on the road. And by very good, I mean they've been awful. And so there's got to be an understanding from Arsenal that they have to defend better, and Valencia has to take advantage of the opportunities, because they themselves could have scored a couple of goals tonight.
Like I said earlier this week, that Arsenal are one of the most disappointing teams, at the very least in English football, that I've seen for quite some time. And that is because despite how talented they are, despite the weapons that Unai Emery has at his disposal, this is a team that only plays well when things are going their way. If you come up against them and you get in their faces and challenge them and make them uncomfortable. It just seems that they don't know how to respond. The 3 losses on the trot in the league is testament to that. But then you look at how good they've been in the Europa League. And Valencia come to London tonight, start well, start on the front foot, deservedly go ahead, at which point they could have easily had a goal or two, even before they broke the deadlock. And then all of a sudden, Arsenal wake up. And now that's a challenge. Given the frailties we've seen of Arsenal of late, given how they looked in the opening 20 minutes of this game, given the fact that Valencia have an away goal, if I'm Valencia, I'm going back and saying, we can get at this team.
Yeah.
We can beat them at home. And despite the result, 3-1 looks good, but it's not that comfortable.
That's the one thing that Valencia, when it was 2-1, that was a fantastic result for Valencia tonight. If they'd have gone out 2-1. Right at the death, the last knock-ins of this game, they didn't close the ball down.
Yeah.
They enabled Arsenal to put the ball in the box.
Let Aubameyang get that third. Brad, from your perspective, how do you explain this Jekyll and Hyde nature of Arsenal? So good in the last round against Napoli, home and away, and then those 3 disastrous Premier League defeats, now this.
I think it goes back to what Shaq is saying. I think Arsenal, they've, for the last few years, lacked a little bit of fight. I think when you look at the teams Arsenal lost against in the Premier League, these are teams that a team like Arsenal don't want to see. They don't want to go there. I think when Valencia come to the Emirates, it's a nice, almost like a pass around. There's not too much physical attributes needed, and I think they're gonna have to toughen up so we can expect one performance from them every week. I think whenever there's a battle involved, they tend to lose that.
Well, the odds look like this now. Arsenal heavy favourites, 2-9 on to reach the UEFA League final, which is in Baku, by the way. Just to remind you, Valencia are at 3-1 outsiders. Second leg on May the 9th. The other half of the Europa League equation, of course, is Eintracht Frankfurt and Chelsea. That first leg finishing 1 apiece. Let's bring in Raf Honigstein on that. Your verdict on what we saw in Frankfurt, Raf?
Well, I think Maurizio Sarri can be very pleased with his performance, with the performance of the team. Once they came through this early period of dominance, of real pressure from Frankfurt, once they started playing their own game, they were the much better side. And if anything, I think the 1-1 draw flattered Frankfurt a little bit by the end of the game, keeps the tie alive. Frankfurt will be looking to have more attackers available. This time they only had Jovic by himself. He still scored the goal, but he looked around and there was no Rebic, there was no Aller. Pacienza only came on late on, so they were a little bit light up front and a little bit heavy on their feet, with legs coming in quite heavily, and Chelsea doing well to make them run, to keep the ball, and just failing to, I think, take really advantage and get that second goal.
Raf, from the Chelsea perspective, a lot of eyebrows raised by Maurizio Sarri not starting Eden Hazard. Was he vindicated in that decision, do you think?
It's difficult to say. I mean, in the first half, Chelsea were pretty poor, and Frankfurt were well worth the lead. They were the better side. They created chances, and it took an individual goal from Pedro right before half-time to level it. Of course, then to bring on Hazard when the opposition are really literally down on their feet and going down with cramps could have been a masterstroke, but Hazard didn't seem to be quite into it, didn't really show us the usual kind of excellence in the box. And you could find arguments why it worked, and you can find arguments why it hasn't worked. If the season ends with Hazard being still in great form and Chelsea succeeding both in the league and maybe we're winning the Champions League, then you can say he's managed it really well with all the other injuries. But on the night, it's very difficult to come down one way or the other, because he kind of nearly blew it, but then in the end, it worked out really well. So hard one to call, hard one to judge.
I guess, Shaka, the proof will be in the pudding, won't it? If they wipe the floor with Watford and Hazard's the star of the show on Sunday. But what did you make of the decision? Were you...
I thought it was a strange one, especially, listen, I understand that Hazard has been playing an awful lot, and he's key to everything about Chelsea. But the fact of the matter is, you're still not guaranteed of a top 4 spot. You want to qualify for the Champions League. I don't think you take any of these competitions for granted. And as much as on paper, Chelsea against Eintracht Frankfurt, there should only be one winner, particularly over 2 legs. You look at Frankfurt and their record over the course of this calendar year in particular, and some of these scalps they've claimed over the last couple of rounds, I thought it was a huge gamble taken by Maurizio Sarri. As Ralph rightly points out, maybe it's worked out. But it's not one I would have taken.
Well, let's see what the odds makers make of who is going to be playing in Baku. They say Chelsea, unequivocally, 3-10.
You like saying Baku, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to say it again before we're done. Eintracht Frankfurt, 12-5 outsiders, so about 2.5 to 1 on. Are those odds, Raf, about right, do you think, for the Germans? What sort of chance do you give them at Stamford Bridge?
I'd give them a slightly better chance. I mean, it's moved from sort of 60-40 to maybe 80-20, but it's a reasonable chance. I think Chelsea have to be much more on it. They can't afford to kind of sleepwalk through the first half. We saw in the last round how sloppy they were and how many chances and goals they could have conceded. If they play against Frankfurt that way, taking their progress for granted, I think they will be punished. And I think Frankfurt will come into this thinking, you know what? Absolutely no problem for us, no pressure. We got nothing to lose. I think we might see a similar game in terms of the psychology that we saw when Ajax came to Spurs. They're just enjoying the fact that they're there, and the pressure will be on Chelsea to stay true to their favourite role. So I wouldn't write them off just that hastily.
Yeah, the dream of that Eintracht Frankfurt Ajax Super Cup in August is still very much alive.
Who's got that dream?
Someone in Baku has that dream. Chelsea are playing Watford on Sunday, and Arsenal at home to Brighton, as we remind you of that chase, if you can call it that, for the top 4 places. Well, it's tough for those headline writers to find a new way to describe Messi, isn't it? Maestro, genius, the magic of Messi. Everyone drooling, of course, after his performance helped Barcelona destroy Liverpool in the Champions League. Pure genius. Summing it up. Don't even need you to translate that for me.
So what was it then?
Delirious. Diabolical.
Hey!
I thought you said it was good.
Cesc Fabregas, his former teammate, actually tweeting out saying it's impossible for someone to tell me there's been someone better than him. Should probably add in the history of the game to Fabregas's tweet there. This was something that went viral. Gary Lineker, Rio Ferdinand in the UK TV booth reacting to Messi's
professional behaviour.
I think I saw more of this than I did actually of the goal on Twitter this morning, but Liverpool fans not liking that in particular. But is Messi the greatest ever? Well, Shaka, you got a lot of questions on ESPN Extra Time yesterday directed to you. You weren't here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how lucky is Shaka not to be here today to get the Messi question?
10.
That was probably a 10, wasn't it?
Goodness.
Yeah. Let's bring out the GOAT discussion out again. And to Shaka, without winning the World Cup, what can finally convince you to admit that Messi is the greatest of all time? What can finally get you to?
Once again, I'll reiterate my same old argument. When you're comparing players from different eras, when we're talking about the greatest that the game has ever seen, I think inevitably you defer to the greatest competition in the game. The highest level, the most esteemed and prestiged prize in the game. That for me is the World Cup. Others would say different. For me, the World Cup will always reign supreme. That being said, I think Messi joins a short list that includes Pelé, Maradona, Brazilian Ronaldo. All 3 of those have won it. 2 of those have scored in World Cup finals. 1 has scored what's been described as the greatest goal ever in a World Cup. And Messi does not, regardless of what he does in the Barcelona shirt, nothing he's done for Argentina, I think puts him in the same discussion with those 3 when it comes to talking about the World Cup and appearances at the World Cup.
Raf, I've got a sneaking feeling that you might have discovered the flaw in Shaka's argument.
There's more than one flaw. There's so many. I mean, when Shaka talks about the World Cup, one name pops up in my mind, Benedikt Hövedes. But I could also talk of Dieter Hoeneß or Klaus Augenthaler. I mean, Stefan Givash. I mean, there are tons of players who won the World Cup and will never, ever come into conversation as the best player. Messi's in the conversation because he hasn't just done it in a World Cup final where he was lucky to be surrounded by players. He plays for Barcelona because he's consistently good enough, brilliant enough to play for or if not the, then it's certainly one of the best teams in the world. And that is the true criteria, first of all. And the fact that he's delivered for such a long period that we're almost kind of blasé about it. And then we kind of forget, oh, yeah, it's only 600 goals for Barcelona. Yeah, we've seen it. Oh, only, 45 goals a season he averages? I mean, come on. This guy has absolutely nothing more to prove. And you want to blame him for being coached by Maradona in 2014 or surrounded by the players he was in 2018? That's not his fault. I don't think we will see another Messi. I don't think there is someone who has played at this level consistently as well as he has. And I don't see how it can be an argument at all.
Shagger?
Listen, as much as Raf is quoting names and throwing out that,
he was pretty good with his pronunciations.
I dare not try to repronounce. I again say he joins a shortlist of 4 players.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure how Raf brought Hovedis into that list.
Or Givars.
The World Cup winner, World Cup winner.
I said there's a shortlist of 4 players. Let's deal with those 4 names.
Yeah. Brad, I want to bring you on this. Which side of this Xhaka-Raf divide are you on?
I'm on Raf's side. I think when you're watching Messi week in, week out, he's doing things that like nobody's doing on this earth. I don't know what planet this guy's from. What he done yesterday is a true definition of a difference maker. Liverpool had a chance to win the game. They had many chances to win the game. The game were on their terms, and then you have the little magician that can turn up and do that, and you're on your way home. I think Messi's the best we've ever seen. That's my opinion.
I have no problem saying Messi's the best of the generation. I have no problem saying Messi's been the...
But all time.
Is the best club player.
Not this generation.
Right. I'm saying Lionel Messi is the best that this generation has seen. I'm happy to say Lionel Messi is the best club player we've seen. But now we're talking about the best player who's ever played the game. When we weren't seeing the likes of Maradona and Pele every day because of satellite television and the lack of technology. We weren't seeing Pele in the European league because he was making more money playing in Brazil. In the Champions League during the eras of Maradona and Brazilian Ronaldo, it was the champions alone that played in that competition, and for large swathes of it, it was a straight knockout. So the comparisons, when you start talking about club football, I think the comparisons and the way the game has changed, it changes the argument. And inevitably, when you're comparing over different eras, when the game has changed as much as it has over the last 60 years, between Pele winning his first World Cup in '58 to today, you go to the highest competition in the land. And as much as we're talking about how consistent Lionel Messi is, he's had his opportunities at the World Cup stage, which he hasn't. He scored 6 World Cup goals, one of them in the knockout stage.
I get that, Shaq, but okay, you make the argument of comparing different eras of the game. The World Cup is also different. There are more teams now in the World Cup than they were back then.
So then it should be easier to score now.
Yeah. What?
Because you're playing against lesser teams.
Are you out of your mind? It's more difficult to win it now than it was back then. There's less teams to beat.
Okay, but it's easier to score because of how many more teams you have. Here's another stat for you. Of the shortlist that I gave...
No, but you cannot... see, Shaq, I understand the logic that you're using. And I'm fine with what you're saying. Because, in fact, at their very best, I will take Brazilian Ronaldo because of what that guy was capable of. But regardless, my point is, if you're having an issue in comparing eras in club football, then you also have to have an issue in comparing eras at the national team level, because the game is also different.
And I understand that. And let me say to this point, I'm not talking about Lionel Messi having to win it. I'm talking about a comparison with Pele, Brazilian Ronaldo, and Maradona. Now, with more teams being in the World Cup, you would think you come up against lesser opposition, which Messi's all his goals have come against. Come against Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, 3 against Nigeria, and Iran. He's played more World Cup games than the other 3 on that list, and scored less World Cup goals than everybody else in that list.
This is the only thing you've done research on, Shaq.
I'm just saying.
So you can bring Brad back in.
We're talking World Cup here.
Brad, just to clear up and be crystal clear, do you think he's the greatest of this era or all time?
Yeah, all time for me. I know it's hard. I'm a lot younger than some of you guys.
And Shaka, yes, and Shaka.
I know it's difficult for me to say that, but I just think there's no one that is doing, has the feet, the class, the goal-scoring abilities, and just the all-round play of Messi. I know people will argue Maradona and Big Ronaldo. Brazilian Ronaldo is one of my favorites. Also Zidane, but Messi is just on a different level. I don't think we've seen a player like this.
A man who did play in different eras, Mr. Mariner.
Many years ago.
Two players. Pelé, hands down. Longevity, scored over 1,000 goals, World Cups, you name it, he did it. In every... Yes, he had quality around him, but he was kicked from pillar to post and still got up and did the magical things that he did. And Lionel Messi in the modern era, it's just those two players for me.
Raf, are you able to tie a bow on this discussion for us?
No, I was going to say that Shaka is right, because we can't really judge Pelé. I mean, none of us has seen him consistently. We know the goals from the World Cups, and maybe we've seen 1 or 2 goals from Brazil, but there's no real comparison. What I would say is there are YouTube videos of Pelé when he wasn't scoring the goals, and some of the stuff he does isn't very impressive, to put it really mildly. You wouldn't see Messi doing it. So I think to do what he does in 2019, when everyone is so much fitter, when it's so much harder to score, when people are pros in all World Cup teams, that's another reason why you can't compare. Those times in the 70s, we were playing against half amateurs, people who were stuck in their countries who couldn't go out and play in any big teams. So
at the sharp end of the tournament,
it will always be Messi.
Raf, at the sharp end of the tournament, you're saying the amateur players were playing. Have you actually had a look at some of these games that Pelé played in? And what sort of... how they dug him out and how they were picking lumps off this guy?
Was only introduced in Germany in 1963.
Well, that's bad luck. I'm not talking about German football. I'm talking about Pelé. I'm talking about Pelé. You talk to anybody in world football, and Pelé is right at the top of the tree. I'm telling you. Pelé is right at the top of the tree.
Paul.
Yes, mate.
Would you agree that the standard has got way better, though? Would you agree that the standard is a lot better?
It doesn't matter about. It's all about training levels.
It's a different game. It's a completely different game.
We can go into that until we're blue in the face.
See what you do, Shaq? Just say Messi's the greatest ever, and then we move on.
Sorry, guys, I've got to wrap it up. We could carry on.
Shaq.
Maybe we'll continue in extra time. Raf's dislike of Pelé is going to open.
That's all right, God.
Pelé. ESPN FC available every day on Plus. If you ever miss an edition of our show, the audio version, the podcast, available daily on iTunes, also on our website, espnfc.com. Now then, MLS interest in the CONCACAF Champions League ended a while ago. You might have heard the news. Monterrey and Tigres.
Where's the CCL fever now?
And you know what? He wasn't alone, because the MLS Disciplinary Committee looked at this and overturned that red card today, Alex. So how does that happen when they've already looked at it on VAR?
I'll tell you what it is. It's an indictment and a referendum on VAR in this particular situation. Because you are relying on the system to get the calls right. You're relying on the system to be able to have the referee take a second look and assess or reassess if the case may be. And yet, what you're saying is once they move on from giving the red card to Roldan and they go to the disciplinary committee, the committee is now saying...
I should say it's the Independent Review Committee, not the disciplinary committee.
Wait.
It's the Independent Review.
Well, now that you say that, then everything is working perfectly. All right. So the Independent Review Committee, let me tell you, that group of people, whoever they are, they're now saying, hey, VAR, whatever you were doing, not good. And whatever the referee was doing, also not good. So they got this call wrong twice. The referee initially, then the referee and VAR together, and now the independent review is saying, no, both of you are all wrong.
Why so much confusion? Why so much confusion over whether that's a red card?
We've been talking about it on the show for a long, long time. It's all about interpretation.
Is it a red card for you?
No, absolutely.
Not even close?
No, not at all. Nowhere near close to a red. I don't think they should have been.
Ali, do you think it was a red?
No.
I don't think there should have been a discussion about it.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, I mean, someone thought it was a red.
Well, we've seen you go down for less. We've seen you go down for less.
Oh, and I would have asked for a red card
during
too.
your own playing career is all. No, but it's unanimous. I think the independent review committee got this right. That was not a red card. I think the referee certainly has some explaining to do in this circumstance.
How does he give that on the field?
I don't know.
Well, he's obviously
don't
been talking to upstairs. He's been talking to the VAR boys upstairs.
Right.
I'm assuming that he looked at the screen. To everybody with a sense of what's going on the football field, we knew that was not a red card straight away.
Yeah.
So Seattle were really hard done by. I mean, he's a top player for them.
Unless the referee sees something or hears something that we aren't privy to looking at the pictures as we've seen, maybe sways his opinion. But I don't see how anybody looks at that and thinks it's intentional, thinks it's malicious, thinks it's anywhere near deserving of a red.
In fact, the hand by Roldan goes up because of the initial push by Atuesta.
Someone's pushing him, right? Right.
So, okay, look.
And his arm came around like that.
Yeah, and so my point is that there's been multiple people involved in the decision-making process, and they thought it was a red card on the field, and then VAR, and then so on and so forth. Then we go to the independent review, and then they're saying, all of you are wrong, we are right. At some point, there's got to be some consistency as to how they're looking at plays and evaluate plays.
We have a full slate of MLS games coming your way on the network and on ESPN Plus. Starts Friday night, Colorado, with an interim coach in charge. Seattle, with Roldan reinstated, will be in Minnesota on Saturday. All of those games on ESPN Plus. The big one on ESPN, the New York Red Bulls taking on the LA Galaxy. Something always special in the air when these two get together. It's been an interesting week for the Galaxy and for with interest. So what was your take on the white heat of competition there involving Zlatan and Nedum Onua?
I want to say, Nedum's my boy, so I've got to be on Nedum's side. I think, obviously Ibrahimovic is a great player, but I think, sometimes, emotions take over and I think he was out of order there. I think Nedum's, if he doesn't want to accept apology, he's right to do that. I don't know if I would have.
Was Ibrahimovic out of order with what he said? Or is that pretty commonplace on the field, Brad?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I've never scored a goal and gone straight to the defender and shouted in their face, and who knows what he was saying before that. I'm not really sure, but I just don't think there's any place for it. You're an amazing player. You scored a goal, just go and celebrate, But again, it is sports, and, people are going to do things, people are going to act out of emotion. And that's how he handled it, but I don't know. I can see why Nedum's angry.
Can you, Paul?
What do you guys think?
Well, look, I think it was out of order what Zlatan did. Whenever I scored a goal, it was always, my celebration with my mates, and maybe have a glance at the defender because you've given it to him. That's the reason for that.
What about the reaction from Onua? I mean, did you buy that? I mean.
Well, it's a bit in the change room or on the pitch?
It's a bit of a surprise when a fellow professional does that sort of stuff. I've never witnessed it, to be perfectly frank. I've been in the game a long, long time. I've never witnessed another opponent coming up to the defender and really give it to him, or a midfield player, or whoever it was. I just thought it was surprising. I don't think it's part of the game. I don't think it needs to be part of the game. Look, you put the ball in the back of the net. Well done, great. Go and celebrate with your mates and your fans. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't care for the part in which Zlatan Ibrahimovic, after he scores, he doesn't go and celebrate, he gets on the face of the defender. That I cannot agree with. That I think is out of order, as you guys have just mentioned. But the truth of the matter is that the bigger point here is that Onua is talking about how how Zlatan was threatening him on the field, how he was saying the things that he was going to get after him and he was going to put one on him and all these other things. Trash talking, it's part of what happens out on the field. And yes, it's emotional. And yes, people care and people want to do well. And Zlatan Ibrahimovic is saying himself that he wanted to get himself going. And in trying to do that, he makes it more about the trash talking and gets Onua thinking about Zlatan rather than thinking about defending. You can make an argument that Onua is late to the challenge on the goal by Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Now, is he late because he's thinking about Zlatan? Is he late because he's threatened by Zlatan? Is he late because he's intimidated or he's got his mind somewhere else? If that's the case, Zlatan Ibrahimovic has done exactly what he wanted. He now scored the goal. He got in the mind of Onua. Onua concerned himself with every other thing other than defending, and at that point, you score the goal, you go and celebrate. What he did after that, I don't agree with.
Brad, do you agree?
Yeah, I can agree to that. I can agree to that to some point. I'm not sure how much it affected Nedum's game. I spoke to him. He actually felt that he had a good game, you know, all in all, dealing with Ibrahimovic. But you're right. I think trash talking that's not something you can be reported for. I just think, yeah, that after the celebration I don't think there's any room for that. But it is what it is.
Well, the Red Bulls and the Los Angeles Galaxy going at it, as I mentioned, at Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern start time on ESPN. Now, the countdown on for the Women's World Cup. The US national team squad announced today. Jill Ellis bringing back 12 of the 23 players that won the last World Cup in Canada. First major tournament without Hope Solo and Brianna Scurry in net since the early 1990s. Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe and Tobin Heath expected to lead the attack. Carly Lloyd set to appear in her 4th World Cup at the age of 36. Probably more as a sub than a starter. There's no subs on the Serie A Awesome bench. That's Gab, that's Paolo, and that's Mina. Serie A's top 4 endgame. The latest pod has just dropped. You can get it on the Pod Center and iTunes. And the Turin derby, Juventus and Torino, will be on your ESPN Plus screens. You can see that Friday afternoon, Friday 2:30 Eastern start time again, Serie A on Plus. One last order of business, the SHPR.
We call this business?
Wait,
Well, this is serious business, I'll have you know.
what are you starting?
2 new entrants.
Let's start at the top. Barcelona, I don't think there can be any argument about that. And then Ajax at number 2. Who thought we'd ever be saying that?
Only you.
But I don't think anybody can argue about it.
Our producer thought you would say that.
Well, I
Yeah,
take
because
right.
he's an Ajax fan.
Well, Ajax fan, but a fake Dutchman. To say that.
Well,
Juventus.
hold on, I have to finish
Getting
my business. I have to
sidetracked.
finish my business at hand here.
Well, hurry up.
Liverpool get knocked down after.
3 places. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Vicious.
tough. It's a tough school. It's a tough school. Bayern go up a place. Spurs drop as you'd expect. Atletico up a spot. Benfica top in Portugal. And Chelsea, after a decent result, away to Eintracht Frankfurt. They're back into the top 10. I got rid of PSG. They lost 2 in a week. Dortmund, you're sitting second in the Bundesliga, but you can't be losing and expecting to stay in my top 10.
This is, I gather, top 10 of Europe, I suppose, because
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
a very
consider
good
the rest
question.
of the world whatsoever.
I did, and they didn't make it.
It was under consideration. I know you thought,
Very, very short consideration.
He said that with a straight face.
Yeah, exactly.
I know you thought long and hard about Monterrey. Long and hard.
Yeah, hey.
Winners of
Very good
CONCACAF Champions League.
11th. There is an 11th.
Didn't quite make the cut.
Honorable mention.
Yeah.
Just under the Chelsea, we were 10.
You had to think who you had at 10, huh?
No, I knew 10.
When did Tottenham last win again?
Oh, no, we're getting ready to finish. Let's go.
We will stay with you for
let's go.
spirited edition
Let's
at
go.
Extra Time. Oh, yes, a multifaceted, many-headed edition of Extra Time for you. We have Ralph Honigstein. Ralph Honigstein, Bradley Wright Phillips.
Esoteric mean?
You know, actually, we're going to turn the page.
What does esoteric mean?
Yeah, definitions.
Let's get to that first.
Just means a deviation from the norm, something a little unique, something a
Oh,
little
well, we'll settle for that.
Use them in a sentence.
extraordinary.
Yeah, we'll
Spell
settle
it.
for that.
Yeah.
The esoteric Ralph Honigstein would like to make
is he?
another point that he
wow.
wasn't able to make
I've
in
heard
the
Raf described as many a thing.
in the show. Raf, you're a little bit shortchanged towards the end of our Pele Messi discussion. I know you wanted to add something, so here's your chance.
No, I just think, look, Pele owes his reputation for being a symbol. He's a symbol of those amazing Brazilian teams who won the World Cup. He's a symbol of beautiful football, of Jogo Bonito. He captured the imagination of generations who weren't watching lots of football. They would watch football every 4 years. They saw the best player in the world. And like we all had in '86, Maradona, he became an icon. Is that to say that he was the best player ever? He was, but he's no longer, because Messi has surpassed him in any measurable sense. The fact that we see him often, I think, has blunted us to the brilliance. But the fact that he's scoring more goals and doing better shouldn't be counted against him. You know, it's a ridiculous argument to say Well, he scored 600 goals for Brazil, for Barcelona. He's only scored 6 for Argentina in the World Cup. That's not the criteria. The criteria is what has a guy done over the course of his career. And I promise you, no one in our lifetime will become close to what Messi has done.
No.
In terms of the beauty, in terms of the technique, in terms of the numbers, and the overall brilliance that this guy has shown every single week on the pitch.
Well, couple of things. Couple of things. Raf already killed all of us, by the way. just in our lifetime. Hold on a second. I want to hang around for a while.
He did it esoterically.
Yeah, yes. Secondly, he hates Pele.
Oh, yeah. We established that.
And I don't hate Pele. Yes,
you do. There he is.
You know we're black and white.
There he is.
You know we're extremes, Raf. We're black and white. Yeah.
And, by the way, esoteric. Intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with specialized knowledge or interest. That's not the definition you gave.
That's not what you told us.
That's not what you said.
More or less.
Feeling a little bit.
More or less it was. Going back to Messi's free kick, Tekers obviously saw the reaction from Lineker and Ferdinand. The whole world has seen it. He wants to know, Shaka, what was your reaction when Messi scored that free
I
kick?
watched that game yesterday with my little man at home.
Yeah.
And we were.
Did he jump up and down?
Oh yeah, we were. Well, we both did. To be fair, I mean, that
I
free
thought
kick was
his reaction
special.
would have been, Dad, you would have saved that. Didn't he say that?
Well, no, he knows better.
Yeah,
he knows better.
My son is not a fan of me.
Play.
I can assure you of that. No.
Brad, bring you in on this. Did you? What was your reaction to Messi's free kick?
Just hand over my mouth, just in shock. Because he's one of those guys that you know that he's capable of it, but when he does it, it still surprises you. That what else can he do? What more can you do to surprise me? It was one of those reactions that's like, this guy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know what planet this guy's from.
I tell you what was surprising, that Shaq actually watched it. You know, odds on he was going to be sleeping or napping. That's nap time for Shaq.
What, 4:20 in the afternoon on the not his sweet spot?
The only reason he watched it was his little boy wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
I'm not sure how I feel about this line of questioning.
Brad, Jamal has made a prediction for the second leg. I want to get your reaction to it. He simply says, Liverpool 5, Barcelona 3. Remember this tweet. So Jamal thinks Liverpool are
Who
going
made
to
that? Who made that prediction?
just one of our viewers, Jamal.
Who made that
Jamal.
prediction?
Some guy named Jamal.
Jamal. I don't know, Jamal. I don't know, my friend. That's a bit wild. They have Messi.
So hold on a second. I have to ask a question.
Going through.
Yeah, it goes 5-3. Barcelona go through.
Well, no, he's saying presumably that's the aggregate score. He thinks Liverpool are going to win 5-0.
Well, Jamal's got to explain his case better than
No, because there'd be no point for that tweet. If he was saying 5-3, he's saying, Barcelona are going through. He thinks...
Tell Jamal, if he wants us to remember one of his tweets, let it make sense.
Yeah.
Send a tweet that makes sense, Jamal.
Because we're not,
remember your tweet.
We're not the smartest on this table.
Jamal, maybe you have an ally...
not the smartest on this show.
Maybe Jamal has an ally in Raf. I know you're a big admirer of Jurgen Klopp and his ways of operating. Can Liverpool come back?
It's very hard to see. I think 3-0, I don't see really a realistic way of coming back. I mean, look, football makes a mockery of all of us because you can analyze this game and you will not end up with a 3-0 result. But that's what happened. So on that basis, you know, the madness, the chaos might happen a second time, this time going the other way. But, I mean, Barcelona would have to have the kind of night that they had at Roma last year, where they kind of sleepwalked into this defeat, just thinking they are through somehow. But I just can't see that happening because I think they will take Liverpool so much more seriously than they did Roma on the night. And they only really need that one goal. So I think it's all over for Liverpool.
Moving to the Europa League, Raf, and moving to Eintracht Frankfurt. Jim wants to know what team you think has the best chance to sign Jovic in the summer.
Oh, this is an interesting one because Frankfurt are quite honest and open about this. They say, look, the guy is 21. If a big offer comes in, we might be able to turn it down, but we can't really stop this guy from trebling or maybe quadrupling his wages. It's not realistic. So if someone puts some money on the table, I think we're talking about 60, 70 million euros minimum for a guy who's one of the outstanding talents of his age group in terms of the goal-scoring prowess, then they can have him. And I think right now it's between the Spanish clubs, I think Real Madrid and Barcelona are both interested for different reasons, if you will. I think Bayern are thinking about it. And I think there are 1 or 2 Premier League clubs as well. The question is, can Chelsea, for example, sign him? Because they don't even know what's going to happen with their FIFA potential ban. But there is big interest, and I think it's a 99% chance that he will leave in the summer.
Some player indeed. Another good goal for him today against Chelsea. Shaka, final question for you. Kepa in goal for Chelsea. He's played almost every game this season. As a goalie yourself, do you think that this type of workload can make your reflexes slower in the final games of the season?
Come on, man.
As I've said many times on this show,
What?
goalkeepers are the hardest workers
What?
on the pitch.
Stop it. Don't
And
be
the training
silly.
ground.
What?
Right, cut
We
his
are
mic off.
finely honed athletes.
Come on.
And we can take the grind of a long season better than anybody
All you
else.
do is stand in the goal. That's all
Better
you
than
do.
anybody
Yeah,
else
you
in
don't do
football.
anything.
You don't do
You don't
anything.
do
You're
anything.
right, Brad.
Listen,
You can still play now, Shaka. You can still play.
You just stand in front of the goal, balls bounce off your knees, and you call that a career?
Yeah, but I pretend to run about a bit. You stay in the box and just catch footballs.
Very true.
It was hard work.
He's right. He's right.
Slow down your reflexes at the end of the season.
me tell
I
you
mean,
something.
honestly.
Hey.
How quick were they to begin with, is what you're saying?
Have you ever got cramp in the goals?
No, exactly.
No, well,
as I continue to explain to you,
Kepa
Because
has.
you don't do anything.
Kepa has. He's been
He
cramping.
got a cramp in the studio once, didn't you? I seem to remember that.
Well, slightly different.
Oh, in South Africa. That was in South Africa, yeah.
I'm not sure anybody would describe me as a finely honed athlete at this point.
No. The answer is no.
All right.
Nobody would.
Thanks.
Not even me.
He's a very good sleeper, though.
Oh, yeah. It's world class. World class.
An Olympic
Next level.
An Olympic
He's the goal to sleeping.
He is the GOAT.
Thanks to Bradley and to Raf and to all of you for your questions. ESPN FC back tomorrow with a
Thanks, guys.
weekend preview.